Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you've been tracking the journey of our intrepid, if often clumsy, adventurers, you know the last few sessions were just a descent into true existential horror.
Absolutely. They weren't just fighting monsters. They were fighting the very idea of despair itself, deep in the Shadowfell.
Yeah, a space that didn't just chill them physically, but psychologically. It stripped away everything, their faith, their fury.
It was a brutal stretch, for sure. The whole environment was designed to, isolate and paralyze them.
But session 17, this is the moment where the scales finally tip back.
Oh, absolutely. They tip back toward life. We're diving into a rare, and I think really essential, narrative breather, the Equinox Feast.
A celebration of the sudden, just miraculous restoration of Thunder Tree.
It really was a miracle.
So that's our mission today. We need to unpack this huge emotional pivot, how they processed the trauma they just went through, what deep theological insights the druid Reidoth gave them.
And most importantly, what this mysterious Ouroboros key tells us about the massive threat they're now facing.
It's an artifact of, cosmic evil.
Exactly. This is a celebration, yes, but it's also kind of a graduation ceremony. They go into this feast as survivors.
And they come out as champions.
As true champions, with a very defined, very dangerous mission. The victory was so complete, it just triggered an immediate reset of the whole world around them.
A reset that was, instantaneous? And just overwhelming? Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with that sheer sensory explosion of walking out of the Shadowfell and into a fully realized spring day.
Yeah, we have to remember what Thunder Tree was. It was a place already burdened by history, ravaged by that volcanic eruption decades ago.
Right, Mount Hope now.
And then it became actively corrupted, choked by all this Shadowfell energy pouring out of the ground, turning the woods into this domain of cold despair.
And that oppressive darkness, it wasn't just visual, it was environmental. It absorbed sound and light, and the air itself felt heavy, sickening.
Right, and all of that was centered on the Gulthias Tree.
That was the source.
It was the siphon, drawing the darkness from the Shadowfell and just poisoning the material plane. The notes really emphasize that the moment that tree was destroyed,
Down in that cavern.
the environment just snapped back
Yeah.
with zero lag. It's a testament to the power of the natural world, when that corruption is surgically removed.
The atmosphere, which had been all about this chilling, damp, heavy despair, it was just instantly replaced. The source material describes it as walking into a vibrant, almost overwhelming spring setting.
It was a full sensory counterattack. I mean, that thick, oppressive darkness was just gone.
Instantly.
Instantly. The air became warm and humid, carrying the scent of fresh earth, soil that had been fallow for way too long, and that sharp, distinct smell of blooming wild onion.
The smell of life aggressively coming back.
Yes. And it's more than just a season changing. It feels like a cosmic validation of what they did. The woods, which had been skeletal and brittle,
Sickly.
now felt ancient and protective.
That phrase, ancient and protective, that's so crucial. It signifies the restoration of this deep, original balance.
It does. They didn't just clear out some pollution, they restored the fundamental vitality of the land. It shifted from a place of decay to a bulwark of life.
And that confirms for them and for us that their victory was on a much larger, more spiritual scale.
They repaired a fundamental tear in the ecosystem.
And their guide in all this, the druid Reidoth, he was there to meet them, standing in the middle of this instantaneous spring. How did he react?
Reidoth, his whole life is the health of the natural world. He greeted them with this profound reverence. He called them champions.
Not just adventurers.
No. He recognized they hadn't just completed a task. He told them they had, and this is a quote, unlocked the season of renewal itself.
Wow. For a druid, that has to be the highest praise possible.
It is. They basically executed the fundamental mechanism of life overcoming shadow.
And the celebration he throws is perfectly timed, based on this natural theology. The Equinox Feast.
Right, the moment when light and dark stand in perfect equilibrium.
The timing is just loaded with meaning, isn't it?
It is. The equinox is a sacred moment of balance. It forces them to reflect on the darkness that was and the light that's now going to prevail. After spending so long in a plane of perpetual night.
This is a psychological necessity.
Totally, it re-anchors them in the rhythm of the material plane.
So the feast itself, inside Reidoth's small, miraculously restored house, it sounds like this little pocket of pure vitality.
It was an intentional refuge. The source material notes that the house was unnaturally well lit by sunlight.
And think about that contrast.
Oh yeah. They came from a realm where the sun doesn't exist, where light is muffled and ineffective. To suddenly stand in a space just flooded with pure, unfiltered sunlight must have been almost painful.
But a glorious kind of pain.
The glorious, overwhelming reminder of reality.
And the practical details, the house was suddenly filled with fresh wildflowers.
Exactly. Wreaths and garlands. It wasn't just cleaned up, it was actively decorated with symbols of life. And the air, fragrant with roasted meats and rice. It just countered that cold, damp stench of the caverns.
But the feast was more than just emotional comfort, right? The sources say it had a distinct physical and spiritual effect.
Yes, this is where Reidoth's druidic magic comes in. The warmth of the fire, combined with his specific rites, it had a powerful restorative effect. And this is beyond just, regaining health or whatever.
So what does that kind of deep restoration actually mean?
It granted the entire party renewed strength and vitality. After the shadow fell, their spirits were frayed, their confidence was shot.
Their reserves were just gone.
Critically depleted by that psychic assault. This magic effectively recalibrated their entire being. It rebuilt their physical vigor and, more importantly, their spiritual resilience. It's like an internal armor plating.
So now they're grounded, anchored, ready to face the world again?
Exactly. And now that they're physically and spiritually renewed, they can actually afford to look back, and that's where the session spends a lot of time reflection.
Right, the reflection segment is just brilliantly handled. It lets them process their journey on two different levels.
Two very distinct levels. First, you have the chaotic, often embarrassing failures that, solidified their bond.
And second, the shared existential trauma that proved their resolve.
Laughter is the perfect bridge out of the horror.
Let's start with the highlights of their chaotic adventures. The moments of shared incompetence that probably seem hilarious now.
The sources spend a lot of time on Ohio Calm. Jim's persistent, almost cartoonish inability to be stealthy.
He's the rogue who just cannot hide.
He cannot. The recollection brings up multiple times where Jim decided to go solo, believing stealth was his birthright, only to be immediately discovered.
And it usually ends with him getting caught and beaten.
And the whole plan getting derailed. The humor is that it's a recurring theme. He tries, he fails, they suffer, they rescue him, and the group just survives this stupidity.
Those shared near catastrophes, they're the real foundation of camaraderie, aren't they?
Absolutely. It's not just the victories, it's surviving the chaos together.
And then there was the maze navigation.
Oh, the infamous maze with Plepjalep and Turin. They were supposed to navigate this labyrinth, and the notes emphasize their completely different, yet equally ineffective approaches.
How bad was it?
It was less about strategy and more about brute force randomness. They didn't have a plan. They just tried every direction.
And they only succeeded after.
Multiple failed attempts in different directions. It showcased Plepjalep's unique approach, which I guess you could call pathfinding through exhaustion.
They just stumbled into the solution.
They did, proving that sometimes perseverance just beats planning.
And we can't forget Turin's close calls with water.
That whole sequence at the Tower of Storms was harrowing. Turin, in a moment of, characteristic impulsive bravery, leaps from a cliff.
Nearly drowns.
And then gets frozen underwater during the battle. The reflection was about the sheer stress of that, the proximity of losing one of their fiercest members to a moment of recklessness.
And that recklessness is part of his rage, his defining trait. Great in combat, terrible for planning.
It's the double-edged sword of passion.
Yeah.
And then there was Valindra's unexpected use of that conch shell.
Oh, the artifact they recovered.
Yeah.
What was the expectation versus the reality there?
The expectation for something so powerful was, something controlled, something beneficial.
And the reality.
Valindra blew it. And instead of a subtle summoning or a signal, it just caused loud, unexpected explosions.
Of course it did.
It just speaks to their trial-by-error philosophy with magical items. They just acknowledge, yeah, we nearly blew ourselves up repeatedly, but look how well we work together now.
They also recalled capturing the flaming lizard.
Which was a key moment of growth for them.
Yeah.
They moved from just slaying every threat to exercising some restraint and ingenuity.
They contained it in a magical sphere, right?
They did. It shows intellectual growth, a shift toward preservation and study over just outright destruction.
And linking this back to the bigger story, the mention of the dragon turtle encounter is key.
Yes. They clarified what that was. It wasn't some ancient, world-breaking monster. It was a juvenile the size of a large cart, and it was chained up by dragon cult members.
And that detail provides immediate, chilling context.
It does. The dragon cult is systematically acquiring and weaponizing young, powerful, draconic assets. Their operation is organized, far-reaching, and focused on building an army.
So they shared these light, chaotic memories, realizing they survived their own incompetence. But then the reflection turns dark.
Immediately, it focuses on the sheer trauma of the Shadowfell.
The emotional shift here is palpable. Laughter just stops.
It really does. The Shadowfell was, by all accounts, a psychological breaking point. The environment itself was the weapon.
They described it as extremely cold, oppressive, but colder than any natural cold.
The comparison they used was so telling, like being 8,000 leagues under the sea. It evokes this profound sense of isolation, crushing pressure, finality.
Hopeless, claustrophobic.
Exactly.
Right.
And the core of the attack wasn't physical, it was psychic.
Right. They were in a realm where they heard the worst parts of their lives come true.
I mean, the Shadowfell magnified their deep regrets, their hidden failures, their greatest fears, and just cycled them through this personalized psychological torture.
Designed to make them question everything.
Their worth, their sanity, everything.
And for the devout members of the party, this was compounded by a theological attack.
Valindra, who relies so much on her divine strength, felt completely cut off. Her divine connections felt muffled, like she had water or cotton in her ears.
The gods were silent.
Utterly silent. In a moment of existential crisis, that left her feeling completely exposed and alone. It tested the very root of her faith.
And for Turin, the struggle was internal. It hit his core identity.
Yeah, Turin talked about being unable to access his characteristic rage while he was there. His fury, which is usually his engine, was just nullified by the realm itself.
So the Shadowfell didn't just hurt him, it temporarily erased his defining power.
It replaced it with this cold, rational numbness that made him vulnerable. He had to fight without his primary weapon, relying purely on tactics and resolve.
Which makes the defeat of Odar, the prince born of the Shadowfell, even more significant.
It was an existential battle. They won not because they were physically stronger, but because they collectively resisted that psychological urge to just give up.
And this victory is what makes Reidoth's analysis so crucial. They needed someone to help them contextualize what they had just survived.
A sage to help them digest the gravity of it all.
Okay, so let's take a beat on that trauma. They come out of the Shadowfell feeling exposed, questioning their faith. And Reidoth, the druid, steps in to provide this high-level theological analysis.
Which they desperately needed. He immediately put it into a planar perspective, which is so reassuring for them.
How so?
He explained that the Shadowfell borders a completely different realm of existence. What they experienced wasn't a punishment, but a simple consequence of planar mechanics.
The gods of the material plane just have no power there.
Their influence doesn't reach. So the silence they felt wasn't abandonment. It was just distance.
Just physics, planar physics.
Exactly. It's a fundamental cosmological truth. And to emphasize how serious the domain they entered was, he even name-checked a truly terrifying place.
He mentioned Barovia. For listeners who might not recognize that name, what does that imply?
Mentioning Barovia is the ultimate warning sign. It's one of the most infamous domains of dread, a closed, cursed part of the Shadowfell that actively traps souls in misery.
So by mentioning it, Reidoth is linking their little cavern to a cosmic scale of shadow and tyranny.
He's telling them they weren't just skirting danger, they were dabbling with the same kind of energy that defines the Shadowfell's most notorious corners.
So if the gods were silent, how did Reidoth interpret the survival of their faith?
This is the absolute crux of his wisdom. He concluded that because their faith persisted, despite the absence of the divine,
despite the Shadowfell telling them it was all hollow,
their faith is now rooted deeper than ever before. It survived the ultimate trial, isolation and doubt. It's no longer reliant on external confirmation. It's internal, absolute resilience.
I love that. They lost their connection, but in doing so, they found a purer, stronger version of their belief.
It's purification by fire. And he applies this same insight directly to Turin's personal struggle.
Turin lost his rage, which must have felt like a massive defeat. How did Reidoth reframe that?
He said that the cold despair showed Turin the hollow of failure. The rage, Reidoth implied, was a powerful force, but it was also a shield, sometimes blinding Turin to his own limits.
But wait, I have to challenge that a bit. For a character defined by martial fury, isn't removing the rage fundamentally dangerous? It feels like replacing fire with frost.
That's a valid concern, and that's why Reidoth's definition of balance is so important here. He wasn't suggesting Turin should become passive.
So what did he mean?
He concluded that Turin's strength is now balanced, rooted not in volatile emotion, but in the spring-like certainty of the world,
So the rage was fierce but chaotic.
and ultimately self-destructive if unchecked. This new strength is grounded, dependable, and persistent. He's transformed that fierce intensity into grounded power.
He's balanced rather than merely fierce.
Exactly. Less impulsive, more deliberate. Reidoth's wisdom effectively turns these horrific memories into necessary steps toward mastery.
It's the ultimate therapeutic debriefing.
For sure. And as a natural follow-up to this, we get the Equinox gift exchange. This wasn't just gift-giving, it was an ancient custom of sharing knowledge after great deeds.
And the gifts were highly personalized.
Yes, focused on utility and intellectual growth.
Yeah.
Plepslep, Lyra, Ohio Jim, Felindra, Imogen, Neza, they all received specialized books on various subjects.
Tools for deeper understanding.
Right. But let's go back to Turin, because his gift was a physical artifact that mirrored his internal change.
He received a sunstone.
Which is fascinating. It's a specific navigational tool used by Vikings to navigate the Atlantic. For a character whose history is littered with moments of poor navigation, the maze, the cliff jump getting, a tool for precise directional guidance, is profoundly symbolic.
It's Reidoth saying, you found your internal compass, now here is the external tool to match it.
Exactly. It connects his character development directly to a practical, powerful artifact. He's now equipped to find his way both internally and externally.
And to provide some essential levity, the sources mentioned there was pure fun in the gift exchange, too.
Oh yeah, a lighthearted exchange of personalized artwork depicting each character in different styles, which sparked much laughter.
The psychological pressure release.
It is. They went from fighting a prince of despair to mocking each other's artistic representations. It grounds their camaraderie and joy.
So they're fed, healed, praised, gifted. Now they get the knowledge that steers them toward the future. And it all hinges on that artifact Plepjalep recovered.
The Ouroboros key, recovered from the base of the Gulthias Tree. This is the key to understanding the sheer scale of the threat they face.
The description first. It's a bronze key, a serpent devouring its own tail.
That classic Ouroboros symbol. When Plepjalep showed it to him, Reidoth recognized it immediately, and the notes imply he was visibly disturbed.
And he revealed it's tied to Tiamat.
An ancient demigod of dragons, the chromatic dragon, the five-headed queen.
The ultimate, massive divine adversary behind the dragon cult they've been skirmishing with.
This key connects all the scattered threats, the cultists, the dragon turtle, to a single terrifying source of power.
And the symbolism is profound. Reidoth said in this context, it symbolizes an endless cycle of decay and rebirth through shadow.
That distinction is so critical. Tiamat isn't seeking natural renewal. She's seeking a continuous cycle of corrupted power.
Meaning the dragon cult's goal isn't just conquest. It's establishing this perpetual mechanism where shadow constantly renews her influence.
Preventing a true, definitive defeat. This key isn't a simple lock opener. It is an apocalyptic artifact that controls the mechanism of corrupted resurgence.
And its function is completely non-mundane. It transcends space.
Yeah, the source is concerned the key allows passage through time and shadow to a hidden place. And Reidoth specifically said this hidden place is likely connected to the dragon cult.
That's terrifying. The cult has found a way to use Tiamat's planar magic to bypass the normal limitations of space and time.
Giving them instant access to critical, protected locations. They aren't just relying on mundane travel, they have a shortcut to their major bases.
And now the party holds that shortcut.
They hold the literal key. This elevates them from local heroes to figures of cosmic importance because they are now actively interfering with the plans of a demigod.
Before we get to the main mandate, let's quickly touch on Mitzvah, the magical companion Plepjalep received.
Right, from the dragon turtle. Mitzvah is a smooth, dark gray rock that subtly vibrates when held. It's a beautifully tailored gift for him.
It has two properties, right?
2. First, if he loses it, it magically returns to his pocket. Second, and this is most important for his personal story, it vibrates when near an Evermore family member.
Why the Evermore family specifically?
Because he was instrumental in helping them in the Evermore swamp. So this rock is a direct, practical result of his efforts. It's a magical locator beacon for his people.
It connects his service to the natural world with his loyalty to his community.
It's the micro-focus of the macro threat, saving one family while now confronting the source of all shadow.
Which brings us to the big moment, the Emerald Enclave mandate.
Reidoth officially fulfilled his promise. He inducted Plepjalep into the Emerald Enclave, The rank is specific and loaded with responsibility. Spring Warden.
A role dedicated to protecting the natural world and pushing back against shadow, a perfect fit.
It is. And this leads directly to their new quest. Thunder Tree is saved, but the war, as Reidoth pointed out, is far from over.
He made it clear that while they succeeded locally, the source of the greater Plan Tiamat's influence remains active.
And the mandate is crystal clear. The party must carry the light forward and follow the trail of the Serpent Key.
They're no longer just reacting to local problems, they have an initiative. They have to use this apocalyptic artifact to actively hunt the source of the evil.
Precisely. They are now playing a proactive role in a planar conflict, guided by wisdom, faith, and a key that literally defies reality.
And finally, the logistical matters that close out the session.
Even after saving the world, you have to deal with practicalities.
So what was finalized?
Two things. First, Reidoth agreed to go with them back to Phandalin, which gives them a powerful, wise guide for this next phase.
And the second point, it addresses the enduring mystery of Russell the Cat.
Yes. Pleb Jeleb asked Reidoth to examine the Beast Ring, the item that currently contains the asthmatic tabby cat, Russell.
They want to know how to reliably get monsters out of it.
And Reidoth, showing that even ancient druidic magic requires study, estimated it would take him anywhere from a day to a week.
So the key to defeating a demigod of dragons is in hand, the path is set, and the fate of Russell the Cat is in academic suspense. A perfect cliffhanger.
This session was just pure necessary catharsis. It gave them the emotional recovery and the lore infusion they needed before the campaign shifts to a truly global scale.
The bonds forged in the Shadowfell were cemented here, not with grim oaths, but with food, warmth, and genuine shared laughter.
It's a vital reminder of the humanity they're fighting to protect.
And speaking of laughter, we have to go back to the gifted books. After facing psychic torment, the final act of the feast was to lean into pure, unadulterated silliness.
The sources make a point of detailing this. The reading aloud of hilariously suggestive passages from the gifted tomes.
Imagine the scene. They're around the hearth, restored by magic, having just faced planar evil.
And now they're passing around books and reading double entendre humor about baking and carpentry.
Yeah.
We're talking passages about the proper technique for busting nuts with nutcrackers.
No.
Oh yeah. Detailed instructions on making cream pie custard that resulted in fits of giggles, and serious professional discussions about the best way to install door knockers.
It's the perfect psychological counterweight. That rapid transition from fighting a prince of despair to discussing suggestive baking tips is the definition of resilience.
It proves the Shadowfell may have wounded them, but it absolutely failed to break their spirit or their sense of humor. They claim joy back aggressively.
So now we look forward. They have the Ouroboros Key, an artifact tied to Tiamat, allowing passage through time and shadow. What's the consequence of wielding that kind of power?
And that's the important question, right? We know the key gives them incredible advantages, bypassing space, accessing hidden places, but the Ouroboros symbolizes a cycle of decay and rebirth through shadow.
Cosmic tools like that rarely operate without a cost.
Precisely. For them to use a tool that controls this destructive cycle, to open the paths it unlocks, what profound sacrifice might be required?
Does time or shadow demand payment? In memories, life force, a piece of the innocence they just reclaimed.
The simple journey back to Phandalin is now completely overshadowed by the looming, terrifying question of the cost required to activate the Serpent Key.
The victory is celebrated, the path is lit, but the price of the next step is terrifyingly unknown. They carry the light forward into a shadow that they themselves now hold the key to.
Exactly. They leave the warmth of Thunder Tree, ready to follow the trail of the Serpent Key back to Phandalin, where the first hidden path likely awaits.
Thank you for joining us for this crucial deep dive into their restoration and their new mandate. We'll see you next time as the party heads back to Phandalin to begin unlocking the secrets of the Ouroboros Key.